Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Hope all is well. I'm going to tell you something extremely important, and you should pay attention so you don't miss a point. Before I get into that main topic of this video, I'm just going to say that we are very close to the coming of Mashiach. And people always ask, why do you make every video about, or not every video, but every other video, or the majority of videos mentioning the coming of Mashiach? And the answer is that if you think, first of all, if you think that I'm speaking too much about Mashiach, it means that I'm not speaking enough, or it hasn't gone into you yet. Because if you realize the magnitude of the coming of Mashiach, if you realize what is on the line here, what we are awaiting, you would say, I'm not speaking about it enough. And here's an analogy to understand this. If you, for some reason, if God gave you the lottery numbers to a lottery, and you told your friend to buy this ticket, and he wasn't really listening to you, and you keep reminding him, if he said to you, look, you're driving me crazy, I don't want to buy the ticket, you're telling me too much to buy the ticket, I don't want to buy it, then you would not be telling him enough, because you would be helping him win the lottery, and the fact that he didn't buy the ticket means he hasn't heard what you've said, he's not really taking in what you've said. So too, the coming of Mashiach is infinitely greater than any lottery we could imagine. Money, a few $1 million compared to what we will experience when Mashiach comes is absolutely irrelevant. So here's the main point of the video. This is not yet the main point. But just to introduce us to the main point, I want to say that since we know, or the people who have been lucky enough, blessed enough by God, to be close enough, to learn enough Torah, to know that we're in the generation of Mashiach. We're in the generation that we know the Messiah will come in this generation. And this the Rebbe said over 30 years ago. So meaning, over 30 years ago, we were already in the generation that the Mashiach will come in. So we're 30 years past that. And the question is, how long is a generation? That means, obviously it's a hard question to answer how long a generation is, but we know for sure it means that people who are alive 30 years ago will experience the redemption, at least. And he said this not to children, but he said it to the people at his Farbrengens, yes, also to children, but also adults listening to him. Now here's the point I want to make, and that is that as great as the coming of Mashiach will be, which we know that it will be infinitely greater than any pleasure you can imagine. The greatest pleasure you can imagine is not even considered pleasure compared to one single moment in the coming of Mashiach. In fact, all the pleasure that every single person has experienced combined, that pleasure that everybody of all time has experienced, all that pleasure combined, is not even considered pleasure. It is irrelevant in comparison to one moment in the lowest level of the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden. Just to give you a clue of what kind of pleasure we're talking about. Now, yes, so with that being said, this is the main point, which has had a fairly large introduction, but it's going to be worth it. That when Mashiach comes, as great as it will be, we will miss exile. We will long for exile. We'll say to each other, don't you miss Galus? Don't you miss it when Mashiach wasn't here? Don't you miss it when we were in exile? How could it be? How could it be that when Mashiach comes, we're going to miss exile? Well, obviously, first let's understand that when Mashiach comes, yes, we said it will be all these great pleasures that we will see. We will see godliness in the world. God will reveal himself to the world. That's something that, just think about it. God will reveal himself to the world. God, who's something that's so above us. Most people think of God, they think of it as completely above their comprehension. Yet, when Mashiach comes, God will reveal himself to you and me, and we will experience him in a way that will actually absorb it. And when Mashiach comes, all of our pain will be taken away. We won't experience pain. We won't have financial pain. We won't have emotional pain. We won't have health problems. We won't have jealousy. All the pain will be taken away when Mashiach comes. So how in the world can you tell me that when Mashiach comes, we'll miss exile? Well, this was said by the Frierdiker Rebbe. Actually, the Frierdiker Rebbe said in the name of his father, the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Rebbe of Chabad. And he says as follows: when Mashiach comes, we will miss the exile because we will miss the power that we had in serving God during exile. That when Mashiach is here, as great as it will be, our mitzvahs will not be of the same importance as when we did it in exile, not even close. Why? Because now we have free will to serve God. Now we have to fight to serve God. Now sometimes the Yetzer Hara makes it almost impossible to serve God, and so easy to do a sin, an avera. And yet when you choose to serve God in exile, when the avera, the sin, is so much more tempting, yet you still choose to serve God, that's something special. That is exciting and impressive to God. That causes Hashem nachas ruach lefanai shamarti ve'asita. I am getting pleasure, Hashem says, from you doing what you were told. When Mashiach comes, we're not going to really have the choice to serve God. It's going to be so obvious, and sin is going to be so repulsive and undesirable that nobody's going to sin, and we're only going to do mitzvahs when Mashiach comes. So we're going to miss that aspect. We're going to miss that choice we had to choose to serve God, because we're going to realize how great it was. And also, when Mashiach comes, you won't be able to really grow anymore spiritually. Yes, we'll reach higher and higher, but it will all be through the lens of your service of God and now here on earth. But here on earth, when you serve God, you're expanding yourself and you're reaching greater heights, so that when Mashiach comes, you will reach a higher level. But when Mashiach comes, you can no longer grow. You can no longer do any more service of God like in exile. Yes, there will still be mitzvahs. Yes, when Mashiach comes, we'll still learn Torah, and there will still be certain service of God, but it will be of a completely different nature than that of what we know of now, to the point where the Rebbe Rashab says we'll miss exile. So what we have to do right now, my dear brothers and sisters, is recognize the opportunity in front of us, to realize that Hashem has put us on this very important, this infinitely important mission. You didn't choose to be born. You wake up, you think you're here. You've been placed here by God. You haven't chosen to be born. You've been placed here by Hashem for an infinitely important mission. But sometimes we get sidetracked, or we get distracted, or we just are in a daze, a dream state. We have to awaken and realize that Hashem has placed us here, and we have something to accomplish, something that only you specifically can accomplish, and you specifically have the power to bring Mashiach. So now, with this being said, that we know we're going to miss exile when Mashiach comes, as infinitely great as it will be, let's take this opportunity now, in these very last moments of exile. May it be the last moment. May Mashiach come when this video is already uploaded. But with these last opportunities that we have in exile, we don't know how long it'll be. Let's give it all we've got, and serve God to our greatest ability, so that when Mashiach does come, may it be immediately, we won't have any regrets, or we won't have any desires to have done more. Obviously, as much as it's possible, because we can't change the past, but we can do teshuva and change the future. God bless you all. May Mashiach come immediately. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help support the Torah channel below. May we be redeemed immediately.